In 2007, archaeologists excavating a field in Mantua, Italy, found two people, a young man and a young woman, facing each other, arms around each other, foreheads touching. They had been in that position for 6,000 years. The excavation team stopped working. Nobody spoke. The lead archaeologist, Elena Menotti, eventually made a decision that no field protocol required and no scientific manual recommends. Two were resting intact as a single unit. Her explanation was 3 words: "We want to keep them just as they have been all this time, together." Analysis found no signs of violent death, no evidence of sacrifice, no obvious ritual explanation, just two people in each other's arms for 6,000 years. And the question that nobody in the years since has been able to answer with certainty: why? Picture the person you love most, not a concept, a specific person, the way they move, the sound of their voice in a room before you see their face, the particular quality of their presence that makes a space feel different when they are in it. Now ask yourself something you have probably never seriously considered. When did that feeling begin? Not for you, not for them, for us. When did the human brain first become capable of wanting one specific person? Not just a body, not just warmth, not just survival, but that person, the one that makes everything else feel less important. The answer is buried in the ground, in shells carried 100 kilometers from the sea just to be worn around someone's neck, in bodies placed side by side in the earth with such deliberate care that 30,000 years later, archaeologists could not bring themselves to separate them. In the oldest question our species ever asked, still unanswered, still alive in you right now: what is it like to be seen by someone and to see them back? This is the strange past, where the origins of love are still buried beneath our feet. Go back, not to wedding rings or love letters or any of the rituals you already know. Go back to a world with no word for love, no ceremony, no promise made in front of witnesses, nothing but two people in a world that was trying very hard to kill them both. And still, something happened between them, something that looked, from the bones they left behind, unmistakably like what you feel. To understand how prehistoric humans fell in love, you first have to understand what kind of world they were falling in love in. 90,000 years ago, the planet was a place of almost unimaginable difficulty. The last great ice age had been grinding at the earth for tens of thousands of years. The sea was lower. The forests were smaller. The world was drier, colder, and more unpredictable than anything modern life allows you to feel in your body. Your group was small, perhaps 20 people, perhaps 30. You knew every face. You knew the sound of every cough in the dark. You knew who was strong, who was sick, who had survived the last dry season and who had not. There was no privacy in any sense you would recognize. Your entire emotional life happened inside a group so small that nothing about you was invisible. And inside that small, exposed, dangerous world, something began to emerge that made no evolutionary sense. Something that cost energy a body could not afford to waste. Something that made people vulnerable in a world where vulnerability killed you. Something that, by any strict reading of natural selection, should not have survived. And yet it did. The question is not whether it existed. The question, the one that evolutionary biologists are still arguing about, is why evolution allowed it to exist at all. The first ornaments. In 1997, archaeologists excavating a cave called Es-Skul on Mount Carmel in Israel found something small and easy to overlook: a shell. Specifically, an Asarius gibbosilis shell, the kind found only in shallow coastal waters. It had a small hole deliberately punched through it, and it was found more than 40 kilometers from the nearest coast. Someone carried it there, not for food, not for tools, to wear. The same shell species, perforated in the same specific way, was later found at sites across North Africa and the Levant, all of them dated to between 100,000 and 135,000 years ago. In 2007, a paper published in PNAS confirmed that shells from Grotte des Pigeons in Morocco, dated to approximately 82,000 years ago, showed deliberate perforation, traces of red ochre, and microscopic wear patterns consistent with being suspended from a cord. These were beads, the oldest known jewelry in human history, and they were not random objects. They were made, traded and worn across enormous distances, the same shell species appearing at sites separated by hundreds of kilometers, suggesting what researchers describe as a widespread tradition of beadwork shared across populations long before any of what we call civilization existed. But here is the question that the shells themselves cannot answer. Why? Why would a person in a world of constant physical danger spend time and energy on a piece of jewelry? Researchers at the Leakey Foundation suggest one answer. As human populations in North Africa grew, people may have needed new ways to signal who they were, to identify themselves, to say without speaking, I belong to this group, I carry this knowledge, I have this status. And one of the oldest documented functions of personal ornaments, cited by researchers studying the school shells, is something that needs no anthropological translation. They were used, in the words of the research, as love letters in courtship, not metaphorically, as actual signals. But here is where researchers disagree. Some argue that the shell beads were primarily markers of group identity, not individual attraction. Not, I am someone worth loving, but I am one of us. The distinction matters because it changes everything about what was happening. If the beads were group markers, they tell us something about social organization. If they were courtship signals, they tell us something about the mind, about the capacity to choose, to prefer, to want one specific person over another. And that capacity, the ability to make a specific, exclusive choice, is one of the things that makes human love genuinely strange in the animal kingdom. Most species do not do this. Most species respond to signals of health and fertility, not to individuals. The question is whether those shells, carried 100 kilometers from the sea, represent the first evidence of something more specific. The first evidence of someone choosing a particular person. Not just a body. That person. What you wore told another person what you were worth, how far you had traveled, what skills you had, what group you belonged to, whether you were someone worth staying close to. In a world with no words for these things, the body itself was the message. And someone, 90,000 years ago, looked at another person wearing a shell carried from the sea, covered in red ochre, and felt something shift inside them, something that you would recognize, but ornaments are silent. They show intent, but not feeling. To find feeling, you have to go deeper into the ground, to the bodies themselves. And what the bodies tell you is harder to look at directly than anything the shells suggest, because the bodies tell you that prehistoric humans loved each other enough to make sure the dead did not disappear alone. In 1986, near the village of Dolní Věstonice in what is now the Czech Republic, archaeologists uncovered something that stopped them where they stood. 3 young people between 16 and 21 years old, buried together in a single grave approximately 28,000 years ago. The grave itself was constructed carefully. The bodies were covered in burned spruce branches, possibly forming a funerary structure above them. All 3 had red ochre on their skulls. The 2 on the outside were males, buried with pierced carnivore teeth and ivory ornaments arranged around their heads. The individual in the center had a severe congenital disability, a marked curvature of the spine and skeletal abnormalities that would have made movement painful and difficult. And someone, for that person's entire short life, had made sure they survived anyway. This individual could not hunt, could not run from danger, could not perform the physical labor that the group's survival depended on. And yet they lived to between 16 and 21 years old. The group fed them. The group protected them. The group chose every single day of that person's difficult life to carry them. And when they died, whoever was left chose to bury them with ochre on their head and burn spruce above them.
If you're enjoying this journey, leave a like.
DNA analysis published in PLOS 1 in 2016 changed everything. For decades, the burial was interpreted through one lens, 2 males flanking a female they had both loved. A prehistoric love triangle, frozen at the moment it destroyed everyone involved. It was a compelling story. It was also wrong. All 3 individuals were male, and 2 of them were brothers. which means every theory built around the female in the center, every story about rivalry and desire and tragedy has to be rebuilt from the ground up. What we are looking at is 3 young men, 2 of them brothers, buried together with extraordinary care, their bones arranged in a way that no one has been able to explain. And if this burial is not a love story in the way we imagined, then what is it? The burial is, in the words of researchers who have studied it, unlike anything else ever found. No firm interpretation has been reached. What the burial composition suggests, what the care in the grave goods implies, what the deliberate positioning of 3 people who knew each other in life means, remains genuinely unresolved. But what it proves beyond any scientific dispute is this: these people mattered to each other in ways that outlasted their lives, in ways that someone felt necessary to mark permanently in the earth. That is not survival. That is something else. Now go further north, to a site in Russia called Sunghir, occupied approximately 34,000 years ago. Here in 2017, an international team led by the University of Cambridge and the University of Copenhagen published findings in Science that reframed our understanding of prehistoric social behavior completely. They sequenced the complete genomes of 4 individuals buried at the site, 1 adult male, 2 children buried head-to-head in the same grave, and the partial remains of another adult. The burials were extraordinary by any standard. The adult male was buried with 25 mammoth ivory bracelets, a carved ivory pin at the throat, and approximately 3,000 drilled ivory beads sewn into his clothing. Researchers estimate that producing those beads alone would have required approximately 3,000 hours of skilled labor. The 2 children, a boy and a girl, were buried head-to-head with over 10,000 ivory beads, carved animals, ivory lances, and fox teeth pendants surrounding them. This was not a casual burial. Someone spent thousands of hours preparing for these people's deaths. Someone decided that the labor of an entire community was worth giving to the dead. But here is what the DNA revealed. The 4 individuals at Sunghir were not closely related. At most, they were second cousins. Even the 2 children buried head-to-head in the same intimate grave were not siblings. They had been chosen to be together, placed together, honored together. Not because of blood, because of something else. The study concluded that Upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers were deliberately forming mating networks that reached far beyond their immediate group, specifically to avoid inbreeding. People were choosing partners from outside their own community, traveling to find them, or trading knowledge of where they could be found. Building relationships across distances that, in a world with no roads and no maps, required extraordinary effort. This is not instinct. This is not accident. This is social architecture built deliberately around the idea that the right person might not be the nearest person, that the person worth finding might require a journey. And this is where the evolutionary question becomes impossible to ignore. Building a network to avoid inbreeding makes biological sense. But the evidence at Sunghir suggests something beyond that. 3,000 hours of labor, buried in the ground with a man who can no longer use it. 10,000 beads placed around 2 children who will never grow up. That is not a mating strategy. That is grief. That is the expenditure of enormous resources on something that produces no survival advantage whatsoever. And that is exactly what makes it so strange from an evolutionary perspective. Because grief, like love, is expensive. It costs time. It costs energy. It distracts from the business of staying alive. So why would natural selection not eliminate it? Why would a species under constant survival pressure preserve, across hundreds of thousands of years, the capacity to be devastated by the loss of one specific person? The answer that researchers are converging on is both simple and profound. And it changes everything about what the bones at Sunghir are actually telling us. This is the strange past. Go back to the inside of that world, to the firelight, to the moment when someone from another group arrived. You have never seen this face before, but you notice something. The beads they are wearing, the way they move, a quality of attention in how they look at you, something your body recognizes before your mind has a word for it. That recognition is not new. It is not something that civilization invented. It is somewhere between 80,000 and 130,000 years old, at minimum. It was already there when the first shell was carried from the sea to be worn around a neck. Already there when the first person, was buried with ochre and spruce and ivory, surrounded by 10,000 hours of someone else's labor. Already there when two children were placed head-to-head in a grave in Russia 34,000 years ago. Not because they were family, but because someone decided they belonged together. And it has never stopped. The answer, when you follow the evidence to its end, is not romantic. It is more interesting than romantic. Deep, exclusive emotional bonds between individuals, what we recognize as love, appear to have been one of the most powerful survival advantages our species ever developed. Not because love feels good, but because of what love makes people do. It makes them share resources with someone who cannot currently reciprocate. It makes them stay when leaving would be safer. It makes them spend 3,000 hours producing beads that will go into the ground. It makes them carry a person who cannot walk. It makes them choose one specific person and commit extraordinary resources to that choice in a way that no other animal does with the same consistency or intensity. Researchers in evolutionary biology now believe that this capacity for deep, specific, exclusive attachment dramatically increased the survival probability of early human groups. A group where individuals were deeply bonded to specific others, shared resources more reliably, protected each other more consistently, cooperated across longer timescales, and raised offspring more successfully. The pain of love was the price of the advantage. The grief was the cost of the bond. The vulnerability was inseparable from the strength. Natural selection did not preserve love despite its costs. It preserved love because of what those costs produced. A species willing to sacrifice for specific others. A species that stayed. Now go back to Mantua, to the two people in the earth, facing each other, in arms that never let go. We still do not know with certainty what they were to each other. We do not know if they chose to die together or if someone chose to place them together after they were gone. What we know is that someone, 6,000 years ago, looked at two people and decided they belonged together, and buried them that way, and left them that way, for 6,000 years. That decision, to place two people together in the ground because they belonged there, is one of the longest-running arguments in favor of love that the archaeological record contains. Not proof, not certainty, just two people, still facing each other, still refusing to let go. And the question you came here with now answered and deepened at the same time. Why did humans fall in love? Because the species that loved survived. And you are the evidence. If this changed the way you see the people you love, leave a like to support the video. And subscribe to The Strange Past to discover more strange and forgotten stories from human history. Because our past was far stranger and far more human than we ever imagined.